What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the PWD channel where we discuss professional wrestling. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we're going to be talking about the episode of today's Monday Night Raw, which was the February 6th, 2023 episode of Raw. Honestly, it was a really good episode. We're going to get straight on, starting off with the thumbnail. That's going to be our topic of today's video, our main topic, but we're going to cover the entire show, and I'm going to give my review of the show at the end. I really did enjoy this episode of Raw, so there's a lot to talk about here, and we're going to start off immediately. I always have my notes right here, so if you see me look to the left, that's what I'm reading, but we're going to start off talking about Cody Rhodes and the Paul Heyman segment, because man, it was a fantastic promo. It was beautiful. There were fans in the crowd probably nearly brought to tears. There was like Cody who was nearly brought to tears. Paul Heyman was nearly brought to tears. Or actually, Paul Heyman did have tears. I was nearly brought to tears. It was a very, very emotional and just very beautiful segment overall. Thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing, but let's get straight on to talk about it. So Cody Rhodes makes his entrance and he came out to a really huge pop, which was nice to see. Cody Rhodes cuts a little bit of a promo for a little bit. He goes on and talks about Roman initially, but then, you know, the crowd started. It's kind of how Roman talked about on Friday Night SmackDown, how Roman initially talked about Cody. It was kind of a very similar start, and the crowd started to chant Sammy, and Cody said he wants to talk about Sammy as well. He talks about Sammy, you know, he has the utmost respect for Sammy, and he looks into the camera and says, "Sammy, may the best man win." And, you know, that's pretty much it. Paul Heyman comes out immediately after that, so he didn't get too much solo promo time, but Paul Heyman came out, interrupted the promo, and at first, you know, Paul Heyman comes out and he's giving a lot of respect towards Cody Rhodes, and he even goes up to Cody Rhodes in the middle of the ring. He asks if he could shake Cody's hand, or he reaches out his hand to shake Cody's hand, and he straight up tells Cody, "Congratulations on winning the 2023 Royal Rumble." And when he said it, there was just so much respect, and you could tell he really meant it. It wasn't like him trying to be, you know, an asshole about it or anything. He has so much respect for Cody, and throughout this promo, there was so much respect displayed both between Paul Heyman and Cody Rhodes. It was incredible. It was really, really nice to see. And the two talk for a while again. There's just so much respect being shown while they're talking. And Cody Rhodes kind of changes the subject a little bit. And he brings up how his father, and he was saying, I have to thank Paul Heyman for this. And he brings up how his father there was a time period where all he had was $100 in his bank account. And that $100 was for his entire family. So Dusty had $100 in his bank account, and they were struggling. They were struggling financially as a family, and Cody had to watch his father go through that. And there, you know, I guess there was no wrestling work at the time, and Dusty was really struggling. And you know, he had to even go to some lengths to make money or just keep his car, keep his vehicle. That's how much they were struggling. But there was one person who reached out to Dusty to help him out, and that one person was Paul Heyman. And Cody is saying this. Cody's getting emotional while he's talking about this, and this is deep. This is from the heart, and he's even mentioning I guess they're saying outwards to the crowd and to the people watching at home, we're going to peel back the curtain when we talk about this a little bit. We're going to get deep. We're going to get into some serious stuff, some stuff that you guys may not know, but we know about. And because these are real life experiences. Everything that they were talking about was real life experiences. And he mentions that one person helped out his father Dusty during this time. One person made the phone call for Dusty to go work at ECW, and at the time that was Paul Heyman, of course. Paul Heyman, the founder of ECW. Paul Heyman reached out to Dusty to go work at a show for ECW, and since then, he, you know, obviously that was Dusty's way of making money, and that's how he was able to, you know, financially support his family. So Cody straight up said, "Paul Heyman, thank you. I owe you. Thank you so much, because during a time period where we were struggling as a family financially, you were there to help us. You were there for us." And while he's saying this, me personally, Nathan, I could never reflect how much emotion was going into this promo. I could never explain in words how emotional this part of the promo was, and how much it meant to both performers in the ring, both people who were cutting the promo, because Cody Rhodes is sitting there, he's emotional, and he's genuinely thinking, and you can tell that this was from the bottom of his heart. He is thanking Paul Heyman for what he did back then. And Paul Heyman's looking at Cody while he's saying this, and he's getting very emotional. You know, his face is shaking, his eyes are getting really teary-eyed, like he's brought to emotion, and he's seriously feeling it, and it was just beautiful. I did not expect this at all. I didn't see this coming. The crowd's cheering the whole time. That, you know, they end up chanting "Thank you, Paul," because that's what Cody said. You know, "Thank you, Paul." The crowd ends up chanting "Thank you, Paul." Like, it was just an overly emotional segment. It was beautiful. It was extremely beautiful. And then Cody starts talking, or not Cody, Paul Heyman mentions to Cody that this, let's be honest, this isn't about your father. This isn't about me. This is about you. And he, you know, because they were mentioning their stories between their father and Paul Heyman, but he says, this is about you, Cody. And you have this dream, you know, to main event WrestleMania one day, something that your family, no one in your family has ever been able to do, and you want to be the person to do that. And unfortunately, you're coming face to face with Roman Reigns. So he first off mentions Roman Reigns. Cody is a little bit disappointed in the face, almost like he knows he has a big task at hand when he's going to be facing Roman Reigns. You know, Heyman says that he is not only coming face to face with Roman Reigns, but he's coming face to face with the greatest champion in the history of professional wrestling. So he's putting over Roman heavy. Cody, you could tell by his facial reactions, he also has a lot of respect for Roman. But then Heyman switches it up one more time, and he talks about how Dusty trained so many professional wrestlers that are in the locker room right now. He mentions Becky Lynch, he mentions Seth Rollins, he mentions Bayley, he mentions just a bunch of wrestlers, because if those who didn't know, at the Performance Center, they're actually in Orlando. So Paul Heyman points to a different direction. He says the Performance Center is right over there, and that's where Dusty, because Dusty was the head of the Performance Center. He's the one who taught so many of the greats that we know right now. He helped out Moxley, he helped out Seth Rollins, just everyone. All those people that we're currently watching, the main talent, the main crops of talent that are coming through right now, all of them were trained by Dusty. And if you talk to any of those talents, if you listen to podcasts or anything like that, they will tell you how much that meant to them. And Paul Heyman goes on and says how they were trained all by Dusty, but there is one person who was never trained by Dusty, and that person is you, Cody Rhodes. And he points at Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes looks a little bit disappointed again, but it's the truth. What Paul Heyman is saying is the truth, because Dusty never taught Cody. And then Heyman goes on and says that I could say that maybe that's because he didn't want you to be in his father's footsteps, blah, blah, blah. Heyman goes on. It's still a really emotional segment. They're talking about Dusty, his father. We all know how much Dusty means to Cody. The American Nightmare it's his nickname stems from his father, the American Dream. So, you know, they go on, and Heyman continues to cut this promo, but then he says one thing that turns it all around. He says, you know what, Cody, on the final conversation that I had with your father, he admitted to me, and he pauses for a little bit, and he says that you were his favorite son. And the crowd cheers. It's still really emotional. You could tell Cody's getting emotional about it. And he says, but Roman Reigns was the son that he wished he always had. And that was it. That was what turned it from being this mutual respect thing. You know, these two guys had, the promo was it was almost like there was no beef with each other. It was just nothing but respect and nothing but positivity up until then. And that is what really switched this segment differently. This was towards the end of the segment, but the segment switched like that. And just the whole emotional roller coaster that these two went on throughout the segment. Like I said, I can never convey the emotions that these two truly went through. And you have to really watch the segment. I would, if you haven't watched the show, go out of the way to watch this segment specifically. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful. But the segment switches from then, and Cody is pissed now. Cody is absolutely fuming. Heyman drops the mic just like that. Mike hits the floor. Heyman turns around, and then Cody steps towards him and grabs him, and it's almost like he's going to hit him. He kind of bucks at him as if he's going to hit him, but then he backs Heyman into the corner, and I almost thought that maybe for a second he's actually going to put his hands on Paul Heyman, which would be pretty bizarre. I thought it was possibly going to happen, but Cody, of course, respected him a lot, and Cody's all in his face. Cody's face is red. Cody's all in Paul Heyman's face. Cody's face is getting red, and he's reaching out his hand to Paul Heyman, and he's forcing Paul Heyman to shake his hand. Paul Heyman reluctantly does. I think he kind of forces Paul Heyman to shake his hand, and he's squeezing Paul Heyman's hand, and Cody kind of has the mic next to his chest, and you can hear Paul saying, "Ow, you're hurting me. Ow, you're hurting me." And like, he's like, you know, Paul Heyman usually does that voice that he does when he's in fear, and he's like, "You're hurting me, you're hurting me." And then Cody straight up says, "I just wanted to win some belts, but everybody has to make this personal." And at WrestleMania, he is going to take those titles from Roman Reigns personally. So the feud went from just being mutually respectful towards each other. Paul Heyman flipped it on its head, and now Cody is serious. My words could never convey how amazing this segment was. It was a fantastic segment. I was happy for Cody winning the Rumble, but I really wanted Sami Zayn in that world title match at WrestleMania. This was that flip of the switch that was just like, okay, now we know why Cody won the Rumble. Now we know how much storytelling these two are truly going to do. And this feud, I think, is going to set up after Elimination Chamber as an all-time great feud. This was a beautiful segment, a fantastic start to Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. And a lot of people were really, I guess, down on it because, of course, they wanted Sami to win. But now, man, how could you not want to see Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns? This did a lot for the feud going forward, and it was just a fantastic segment. Like I said, my words could never describe how amazing the segment was. If you haven't already seen it, go ahead and check it out yourself. But yeah, that was a beautiful start off in the segment. But with that being said, let's get into the rest of the Raw review. Like I said, we had a great show, so let's get straight to it. So the show kicked off with Edge coming out. I popped hard. The audience, the crowd popped really, really hard. It's always like so amazing to hear Edge's music. Like, you know, when Edge's music hits, you're in for a good time. The crowd is hyped. Edge was extremely hyped to be back. He was like taking selfies with fans. He was dapping up all the fans. It was really, really awesome to see. But yeah, we got a recap of the Edge and Judgment Day feud once Edge got to the ring. And then Edge kind of cut a promo. He said, like, Judgment Day is my fault. I made this group so that I could elevate each of the talent, and unfortunately, he didn't say unfortunately, but he did say it did work and that it did backfire on him. The Judgment Day then interrupted the promo. They cut a promo against Edge and Beth. Edge and Beth were both in the ring together. I forgot to mention that Beth Phoenix was also there. Edge retaliates. Edge cut a fire ass promo. He was talking. He kind of broke them down one by one. Rhea Ripley wasn't there tonight. I think she's with her family in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. But he broke down Dom, Finn, and Damian Priest in this promo. It was really, really cool to see. And then on top of that, Beth starts cutting a promo as well. She laid out a match at Elimination Chamber. She said that she wants to be Edge and Beth Phoenix versus Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley. If they accept, Finn Balor accepted on behalf of Rhea Ripley, so it's going to be a 2-on-2 mixed gender tag match, and Finn accepted, but he says only if you are even able to make it to Elimination Chamber. And they surround the ring. The three of them surround the ring, and they start beating down on Edge, but then the Street Profits come out, and they helped. Street Profits helped even the score. And then the funniest part ever, and you have to go watch this clip if you can find it, but the funniest part ever was Beth. She hit the glam slam on Dominic, but while Dominic was in midair with his he was in the chicken wing where his arms are tied behind him. He's screaming like a little crow, and then he stares at the camera and he says, "Mommy!" And then he gets glam slammed straight to the canvas. It was beautiful. You have to go watch the segment because it was really, really funny. But it was a nice way to kick off the show for sure. After that, we moved on to Angelo Dawkins versus Damian Priest for the Elimination Chamber. There was a really cool spot in this where Dawkins threw Damian Priest way over the announcer's table. That was really badass. Dawkins also hit a really massive swanton, which was nice. Priest just kicked out, and it was a really, really good back and forth match. Like, they really booked these two to be straight up even. It was really, really awesome to see. Priest eventually did end up winning with his finisher, but this was a really good, evenly contested match between these two, and it was a really nice way to kick off Raw for a match. It was the first match of Raw. It was a really, really nice way to kick off Raw. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. It was a good match. After that, Austin Theory pulled up in the Lambo, and we went from that segment to Chelsea Green threatening Adam Pearce's job if he isn't if she isn't entered into the Elimination Chamber. So she went up to Adam Pearce and she was like, where's my Elimination Chamber match? Basically, because everyone's having these Elimination Chamber match qualifying matches. And she went up to Adam Pearce and she was like, if you don't enter me into that, I'm going to get you fired, basically. She threatened his job. And then after that, we got a Bloodline segment recap. We then moved on to Baron Corbin versus Dexter Lumis featuring Gargano. Gargano was with Dexter Lumis tonight. Corbin was beating down on Dexter Lumis pretty early. He pretty much ended up destroying him really early on the match, but then Lumis came back and destroyed him, and that was the end of the match. It ended really quickly. It was a pretty good match, all things considered. It was really short and sweet, but all things considered, it was still really good. JBL was very disappointed with Baron Corbin, and they do end up following on with this later on in the night too. Byron Saxton then interviewed Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch cut a good promo hyping up the match for tonight against Bayley, the main event in the steel cage match. And then after the Byron Saxton and Becky Lynch interview, we then got a Brock Lesnar promo, which I am always a big fan of Brock Lesnar promos. They are always extremely entertaining. So Brock came out and he cut this promo. It was pretty funny. I don't know why I find Brock Lesnar promos so funny, but this one was really funny. He cut a promo about how ever since he was thrown out of the Royal Rumble, Bobby Lashley is all he could think about, and he's tried getting his mind off of Bobby Lashley. He's gone hunting, and while he was hunting, all he could think about was Bobby Lashley. He went ice fishing, and whenever he was ice fishing, all he could think about was Bobby Lashley. Whenever he was eating his steak for dinner, all he could think about was Bobby Lashley. And then he kept going on and saying kind of things like that. But the funny one was that whenever he was like, I crawl into bed at night, and when I'm with my wife laying down in bed, all I can think about is, and then he pauses, and then he's like, oh, well, okay. And then 4 or 5 hours after I'm in bed with my wife, then all I think about is Bobby Lashley, insinuating that him and Sable are having sex for fucking 4 hours before he goes back to thinking about Bobby Lashley. And he laughed. The whole crowd laughed. It was a really good comedic moment there from Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar, ever since he's left Paul Heyman, he's really shown that he's a good promo, especially as a babyface. He has a good promo to him, and he's a funny guy. Like, I wouldn't have expected this from 2017, 2018, Brock Lesnar. Like, you just wouldn't expect this at all, but he's a funny guy. But yeah, eventually he pulls a contract out of his shirt and he's like, Bobby Lashley, if you have any balls, you'll come down and sign this contract to fight me at Elimination Chamber. Bobby Lashley does come down. Bobby Lashley gets the contract for Roman, or from Brock, and he's saying like, he basically says like, I have the upper hand. I've beaten you more times than you beat me. And then he gets in Bobby Lashley's face, or Brock Lesnar's face, or he says, I'm going to bring this contract first to my lawyer, to my secretary, to my assistant. I'm going to run it by them first. And then he starts to walk away. And then he's like, are you, and then after he walks away, he turns around and he gets at Brock's face and he's like, are you surprised by that, Brock? And he pushes the hell out of Brock's nose, which I don't know why anybody would do that, but then he starts to walk away. Brock Lesnar grabs him, turns him around, and F5s the crap out of Bobby Lashley, and Brock's getting hyped and he's about to start walking out the ring, but the crowd starts chanting one more time. You know how they always do. Brock's looking around the ring while the crowd's chanting this. The crowd's going crazy. He's looking around at all the fans and stuff, and he's like, why not? He picks up Bobby Lashley again, and he hits Bobby Lashley with another F5 to please the crowd. He walks out after that, and that's the end of that segment. But that was like incredibly funny. It was a funny promo from Brock Lesnar. I always love Brock Lesnar promos. I didn't know that he had this funny, bubbly side to him, but I really do enjoy it, and this is a good segment overall. And I'm really excited for this match between Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar at Elimination Chamber. It's going to be a big hoss match for sure. After that, we got a segment between Dexter Lumis, Candice LeRae, and Johnny Gargano. They're kind of talking, but in the background, you can see Nikki Cross like way in the background, and Dexter Lumis comes up while Gargano and Candice LeRae are talking, and he shows them a picture, a drawing that he did, and Johnny Gargano's looking at it, and it's Candice LeRae, Johnny Gargano, and Dexter Lumis. But then on the far edge of the picture is Nikki Cross, kind of similar to how she was in the it's like Dexter Lumis drew it right there before, like, as the segment was happening, but it's still a good drawing. And it's like, Dexter, is this Nikki Cross? And he looks at the drawing, and then all of a sudden you see Nikki Cross, like, she finally comes a little bit closer to the camera, and Candice LeRae is like, Nikki, and they start chasing after her, and Nikki just runs away, and she's like screaming and laughing while she runs away. And this is the Nikki of old. This isn't Nikki ASH. This is Nikki Cross from Sanity Nikki. Like, she is fully going insane right now. She's finally acting like her crazy self again, and it's really interesting. I'm happy to see this version of her back, but it's really entertaining, and I can't wait to see what they do going forward. She's definitely going back to that crazy Nikki version of herself, and it's really interesting. After that segment, we got a fatal four-way. It was Candice LeRae versus Mia Yim, Carmella, and Piper Niven. This was for the contenders for the Elimination Chamber. Basically, whoever wins would be entered into the Elimination Chamber. This match was really good. I really enjoyed this match. Of course, first of all, I'm happy to see Piper Niven back and not Doudrop, because Piper Niven is such a superior version of herself, especially compared to Doudrop. It was also nice to see Carmella back, her first match in like 7 months, I believe. So it was nice to see her back as well. And before this match started, like, I knew this was going to be a good match because the talent in the ring, all of them are really great wrestlers. There was like some really, really great spots in this match. So Piper Niven started off this match kicking everybody's ass. She was going crazy in the beginning until Candice LeRae and Mia Yim had to team up on her and beat the hell out of her so that they could stop her from destroying everybody pretty much. After that, those two started to fight, Candice LeRae and Mia Yim. Candice LeRae hit a nasty poison rana on Mia Yim, which just looked awesome. There was also another spot where all three of them were kind of fighting on the ground. Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, and Carmella, they were all fighting on the ground. And then out of nowhere, Doudrop just comes and like does like a splash onto all three of them. That was a really awesome spot as well. We also got a nice spot from Candice LeRae, a beautiful moonsault off the middle rope onto Mia Yim. It was perfectly placed. I really love that moonsault. And yeah, there was a lot of good spots in this match. There's too many to really name individually, but Carmella is beating up the match ends by Carmella beating up Candice LeRae in the corner. Out of nowhere, Piper Niven comes from behind Carmella. Carmella notices, she dodges it, and Carmella does a cannonball onto Candice LeRae, who was in the corner. Once Piper Niven gets back up from hitting the cannonball onto Candice LeRae, she then gets super kicked by Carmella, and Carmella is able to hit the pin on Piper Niven and win the match. I thought this match was really good. It was a nice fatal four-way match. All of the women are great talent, so it's not too surprising that they put on a good match, but it was still really entertaining, and the crowd unfortunately never really got into this. I would actually recommend going and checking out this match if you didn't watch the show. This is one of those matches that I would recommend checking out. I would say though that the crowd does hurt this match because they never really get into it despite it being a good match. I really enjoyed it though. I thought that Piper Niven probably could have done with a win over Carmella, but they went with Carmella. It was still a great match, but I just thought that result maybe should have changed. We then went backstage where JBL was upset with Corbin. This is pretty much the breakup. I guess JBL is done with his little stint with WWE because him and Corbin basically broke up. He made Corbin really sad, but Corbin was disappointed, and this is because of Corbin's loss earlier in the night. And yeah, after that, Piper Niven comes backstage, and we see Candice LeRae walking. She slams like Candice LeRae into the wall and basically says like, "This is your fault. You ruined my match tonight." And then Mia Yim comes and defends Candice LeRae. They kind of talk trash. All of them talk trash to each other. Well, mainly Mia Yim and Piper Niven after that. But I'm happy to see this version of Piper Niven now. She's definitely has that fire to her that she never really had as Doudrop, and it's just nice to see her better version of herself back. So I think we're gonna get some good television from Piper Niven going forward, and I'm really ready and excited to see what we have from her going forward. After that though, Alpha Academy versus Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, and MVP was in the corner of Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, kind of getting a Hurt Business reunion here. I think that Bobby Lashley during the promo with Brock Lesnar also hinted at that whenever he said that he was going to show these papers to them, his lawyer and stuff like that. I think he was kind of hinting at a Hurt Business reunion. And yeah, this was a good match as well. It went really short, but it was short and sweet. Cedric Alexander and Chad Gable had some really, really good spots together. They did some incredible work together. MVP was being a ring general for the Hurt Business again. I'm just going to call them the Hurt Business because that's pretty much what it was at this point. But yeah, even commentary mentioned it. They were like, "Are we seeing the reunion of Hurt Business?" And they also mentioned how Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin looked so much better with MVP in their side. MVP was just commanding those two. You can hear him from the outside yelling and telling them what to do. He was being the ring general for them. And yeah, this was a really, really decent, it was a good match. It went really short, and the crowd unfortunately didn't get too much into this one as well, but it was still a good match. I would go check it out if you have the time. Decent match. Again, went short, but it was short and sweet. And yeah, Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin won, and I think that we are seeing the reunion of the Hurt Business now. After that, we got The Miz and the Rick Boogs recap. We then had a Kathy Kelly interview with The Miz backstage. Rick Boogs intervened on that interview. And then The Miz is talking trash about Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce comes in, and Adam Pearce says, The Miz, you'll fight Rick Boogs next week. This segment was really whatever. Chelsea Green then came in at the end of the segment and went up to Adam Pearce and again demanded a match. She says, I'm going to go to the ring right now, and if I don't have a match, you're basically going to lose your job, Adam Pearce. So I'm kind of liking this like bossy character that we're getting from Chelsea Green. I'm interested to see where it goes. But yeah, then we got the match. Chelsea Green comes up. She makes her entrance first, and then she waits for her opponent, and it was Dark Asuka. I'm really enjoying Dark Asuka right now. She is freaking awesome. Although with that being said, this match was really filler. The whole segment was filler. All of the women who are in the Elimination Chamber were ringside, kind of like lumberjacks basically. They were all, or lumberjills, they were all ringside watching this match. The match started off with Chelsea Green like getting a cheap shot as soon as the bell rang. She got a cheap shot on Asuka, and she was beating down on Asuka for a while. She then started to look at the women that were ringside. So like Nikki Cross was ringside, Natalia was ringside, Raquel Rodriguez was ringside, or Gonzalez. She's one of the, I don't remember her last name right now, but she was ringside, and then Liv Morgan was ringside. Chelsea Green went up to each of them individually and was just talking trash, and this went on for like 2 minutes straight. It took up a good portion of this match, and then of course after that, Asuka came back and destroyed her and won really shortly. This was a really short match, and it was just really filler heavy. Bianca Belair came out in the end. She cut a promo and saying, I'll see you at WrestleMania, whoever wins this Elimination Chamber match, because now we know that Asuka's in the Elimination Chamber. The winner does get to face Bianca Belair at WrestleMania, whoever wins the Elimination Chamber. Hopefully it's Asuka, but I'm interested to see who really takes the W there. But yeah, this segment was probably my least favorite on the entire show. The match didn't work for me. It felt really filler heavy, and I just thought it was a bit weird. I have everything else on the show I have a lot of positive to say about, but this segment was only kind of the only segment where I really wasn't that high on. It was just whatever. After that, we got the Cody Rhodes segment, which I already did cover in the beginning of this episode, and then Montez Ford and Elias with Austin Theory on commentary. The winner of that match would go on to the Elimination Chamber. It was a decent match. It was a fun match. It went short as well, but it was still a fun match. I enjoyed it as well. Montez Ford versus Elias. Montez Ford won. Before Montez Ford was about to hit his finishing frog splash, I think he accidentally dropped an F-bomb because he was getting really, really hyped. The crowd was really into him, and you can hear him yell I'm gonna qualify for this effing chamber, and I think he said the F word. I think he dropped an F-bomb on accident, which was funny. And yeah, he won the match. It was a good match. It was a good wrestling match, and one of the things about this show, the overarching story of this episode, was that there was just so much good wrestling. That's why I really enjoyed this episode of Monday Night Raw, because there was just a lot of good wrestling. I don't know, they just went out there and wrestled their asses off tonight. Even if some of the mid-carders are out there, you were still getting a good match, and I enjoyed this show, and yeah, I enjoyed that match. After the match, Montez Ford is celebrating. Austin Theory, who was on commentary, gets on the commentary table like that, with both feet, and then out of nowhere, you just see Seth Rollins come out of completely nowhere and swipe Austin Theory's feet away, and so Austin Theory falls onto the commentary table and then rolls onto the floor, and then he gets curb stomped by Seth Rollins, who was wearing this ridiculous outfit. It was like a fishnet top with roses on the sleeves. It was the most ridiculous outfit I've ever seen Seth Rollins wear, and he's worn some very ridiculous outfits, but it was a really funny end to the match and end to the segment. It was really funny. It was a good match again. And then we got the main event of the evening, which was Becky Lynch versus Bayley in a steel cage match. Bayley starts off the match. She tries to escape. Bayley then ended up taking the lead early on. She was kind of beating up on Becky Lynch for a while. There was a few times in this match where it didn't really make sense to me because Becky tried to escape, and the story was leading up to this match was Becky wants to face Bayley in the steel cage since she wasn't able to 2 weeks ago. And so for her to try to escape a few times, it just didn't work for me. I guess the babyface in steel cage matches trying to escape never really works for me, but it definitely didn't in this match. But that didn't take away from the match too much. I still thought the match was really, really good. There was one point where Bayley hits a Bayley to belly off the top rope onto Becky, to the canvas, and then Becky kicks out. I thought that possibly could have been the end of the match, but it wasn't. Becky kicked out of Bayley's finisher. That was awesome. It was a really awesome spot. Later on in the match, you get both of them climbing up to the top of the cage. They were sitting on the ledge of the cage, kind of seeing who's going to escape first, and then Becky on top of the cage applied the disarm her, where then Bayley fell off the cage onto the canvas. And then of course you got some interference from Io Sky and Dakota Kai. Io Sky then climbs at the top of the cage while Becky's about to escape, and she pushes Becky down off the cage. And then you also get Dakota Kai on the other side of the cage sliding her crutch, because she had a crutch with her, like a walking crutch. She slid that into the cage onto Bayley, and then out of nowhere you hear Lita's music hit. The crowd goes crazy. Lita comes out and assists Becky Lynch by beating up Dakota Kai and Io Sky, and then Bayley's about to escape the cage while this is all happening, but Lita slams the cage into Bayley's head, and Bayley turns around and gets hit by the man slam, and Becky Lynch wins the steel cage match. It was a good match. It was a really fun, entertaining main event. It's always nice to see a steel cage or like any other stipulation match at the end of the show. And yeah, that was the end of the show. That was all of the wrestling we had tonight. It was a very, very entertaining night of Monday Night Raw. Good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that what made it so good was just the wrestling. There was so much good wrestling tonight. Even, like I said earlier, even the matches that you would think are less important, they were still good. The men and women out there, they really put on a good show tonight. It was very entertaining. A lot of talent was on show tonight. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed tonight's episode of Raw. Just a lot of good wrestling. We got a really good main event with the steel cage match between Bayley and Becky. And then, of course, the star of the show, the MVP for me, which was Cody Rhodes versus Paul Heyman in a promo battle. That was just beautiful and just the best part of the show in my opinion. But the whole show as a whole, I watched the entire 3 hours and everything, and I never got tired of it. I was enjoying the show the whole time. So of course I'll get onto my rating now, which I would give this show a 4.2 out of 5. It was a really fun show to watch. Like I said, I was entertained the entire time, and there's not much more you can ask for. There wasn't any freaking amazing amazing home run segments. Aside from the Paul Heyman and Cody Rhodes promo, there wasn't the second or third to get a 3 hour show to a 5 out of 5, but it was still a 4.2 out of 5. A lot of good wrestling. I would definitely go watch this match watch this show if you're just looking for some good quality wrestling. If you're just bored at home and you want to see some great wrestling, definitely go watch the show, because it was a good show and I definitely enjoyed it. So yeah, that's going to be the end of that review, guys. If you did enjoy it, leave a like. And if you are new to this channel, please subscribe to the channel, because we make wrestling content. We cover Monday Night Raw, we cover AEW Dynamite, we cover Friday Night SmackDown, and we also do pay-per-view reviews. We're going to be doing pay-per-view watch-alongs, and we're going to be uploading multiple times every single week. So if you do enjoy professional wrestling content, definitely hit that subscribe button. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Comment down below what your favorite segment of the show was. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Peace.